For those of you that are not familiar with Coloma, I'll go into explain how that one plays first, and then I'll let you know what the new Prospects expansion adds to the game. But essentially the way this game works is that each player is going to be starting the game with their own personal player board, as well as some meeples and workers that you'll be able to use to perform various actions, and also some additional starting resources. The game plays over 3 rounds, with each round having 5 phases, but essentially players are going to be using this wheel in the center of the main board in order to perform their actions. Each section in this wheel has 2 actions for the players to use, and if you go to that space, you actually get to perform both of those actions, and you're also going to get the bonus associated with that space because around the perimeter of this wheel there are a bunch of randomly placed bonuses, and anytime that you perform an action in that location, you'll get that bonus. But some of the different actions available are to gain different types of resources, convert resources into other resources, or use those resources to pay to build buildings. There's a whole bunch of different building cards that you'll be able to acquire throughout the game, and each of these buildings are actually going to have 2 different actions that are going to be available to you anytime that you activate the icon associated with that building's action. So if you have 3 buildings that all have the shovel associated with them, anytime that you perform the shovel action, you'll be able to activate all 3 of those buildings. And of course, to activate those buildings through those icons, you'll have to perform the action in the wheel that has that specific icon. But aside from building the buildings, there's also actions that allow you to build bridges. And the difference here is that those bridges are going to give you scoring objectives that you'll be able to pursue throughout the game. There's also an action that players can use in order to gain more horses into their supply, and the reason that you would want to do that is because there's also another action that allows the player to travel, and you can only travel up to the distance of the number of horses that you have in your supply. And whenever you travel, you're going to be moving around on this map, gaining different bonuses as you move across the spaces, but then also putting down tents that can give you additional bonuses throughout the game. Players can also perform an action to draft one of the barrels at the top of the board, which will give you a benefit that you'll gain by spending that barrel. But anytime you do that, there's going to be bandits that appear based on how many players perform this action. Luckily, there is also another action where you can put your cowboys out to fight against these bandits, and at the end of each round, players are going to get benefits or losses depending on how much they contributed to that pool. But another really important thing to know about the action wheel is that there's actually a component that's going to be rotating on top of it that's acting as its own action location, and it's always available every single round, but it's also always going to be covering one of the other action locations, which means that your available action spots are going to be changing every single time. Not only that, but there's also a smaller wheel that's going to be covering up one of the secondary actions at any of the action locations, making it unavailable for whichever players are performing their action there. And the way that this works is that players are actually going to be choosing which action location they want to use in secret, and then whichever action location has the most players at it is going to be the location that busts, and you're going to be rotating that smaller wheel to that location, covering that second action. And the game continues like this, with players choosing their actions, gaining and building different bridges and buildings in order to build their engine, and then also moving around on the various other locations on the board. And this new expansion is actually going to be adding quite a lot to the base game, so if you're interested in adding a little bit more complexity, this is definitely a good expansion in order to do that, because first of all, they're going to be replacing all the buildings with completely new and revamped buildings, adding a little bit more options with each of them, and incorporating some new ideas with the new expansion. But it's also going to be expanding onto the player boards, adding a trail all around the perimeter of your board that you'll be able to use anytime that you bust, as well as through other actions and buildings that you might gain throughout the game. Moving along these can give you benefits, but some paths are more risky than others, and it's going to be up to the players to prepare which paths they want to choose, depending on the amount of risk that they want to take. It's also going to be giving you a brand new set of wheels that can replace the original ones on the action board, which are going to be giving you some new ways to gain barrels, as well as introducing a neutral meeple that's going to be moving around the action board, which of course makes choosing the location with that neutral meeple a little bit more risky because it is more likely to bust. And this is a game that's gotten quite a lot of positive reviews, as well as a seal of excellence from Tom Vassell himself. So if you are interested in this game, I think you can have a lot of confidence in backing it. You can check it out. I have links in the description below.